should have their chapter 7. The numerator is above the denominator. I love how you use my second vocab word, denominator. So after you multiply the numerator, which is the top of the fraction, you then have to multiply the denominators. So you multiply the numerators, or multiply the top of the fraction. Then you multiply the denominators, or the bottom of the fraction. And who thinks they can raise their hand and tell me what goes in for step 3? And step 3 is something that we did all of chapter 7. Very good. Simplify if possible. And I put is possible. Simplify if. I should have put. That was a typo on my part. So we need to simplify if possible. So down here in example 1, we're going to just start off by multiplying the whole numbers by the fraction. So our first example, we have 21, and we're multiplying by 5/7. One thing that I like to do when I'm multiplying a whole number by a fraction is I actually like to take my whole number, and I like to write my whole number as a fraction. And the way that you write a whole number as a fraction is simply by writing it as 21 over 1. Because what is 21 divided by 1? It's just 21, right? So I didn't really change the number. I just rewrote it as a fraction times by. And then I'm going to write 5 over 7. And the reason that I like to write that as a fraction is because when we're multiplying fractions, we can do something called cross-canceling. Raise your hand if cross-canceling sounds familiar. If that vocabulary does. All right, cool. So this is brand new. So what cross-canceling means is you can take a look at the numerator of your first fraction, 21, and your denominator of your second fraction, 7. So I've got those highlighted in pink. And I want to know, is there a number that I can factor out or divide both 21 and 7 by? Raise your hand if you can think of a number that 21 and 7 are both divisible by. 7, very good. So what I want you to do right now is cross off the 21. And what is 21 divided by 7? 3, very good. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write a 3 in the place of the 21. In your denominator, go ahead and cross off the 7. And what's 7 divided by 7? 1. So I'm going to go ahead and write a 1 in place of the 7. Then we can also look at the denominator of our first fraction, 1, and the numerator of our second fraction, 5. Can you think of a number that you can factor out of both 1 and 5? 1, you can factor 1 out, but if I factor 1 out, is that going to change those at all? No. So we can't factor anything out. There's no cross-canceling possible here. So now we simply multiply the numerators. In your numerator, what is 3 times 5? 15. In your denominator, what's 1 times 1? 1. And then simplify if possible. Can we simplify 15 divided by 1? What is 15 divided by 1? It's just 15. So your final answer for this question here is 15. Who thinks they can raise their hand and tell me why we cross cancel? Why did it help me to cross cancel the 21 and the 7 before I did my multiplication? Why would I want to do that? Very good. That's exactly right. When we cross canceled, it makes it much easier to multiply. Which would you rather multiply? 21 times 5 or 3 times 5? Definitely 3 times 5. So that's why we cross cancel. So let's go ahead and take a look at this next example. Who can raise their hand and help me write that whole number as a fraction? Raise your hand nice and high. How can I write my whole number 18 as a fraction? And if you don't know, look back at what we did in our first example and then apply it to the second one. Go ahead. Very good. Rewrite the 18 as 18 over 1 times by 5 over 9. Who can raise their hand and tell me what's the numerator in my first fraction? 18 over 1. What's my numerator? Raise your hand. It's a simple question. What is the numerator? The numerator. 18. Very good. My numerator is 18. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight the 18. And then who can raise their hand and tell me the denominator of my second fraction? So the 18 is my numerator. What's my denominator? The 9. Very good. Raise your hand if you can think of a number that you can factor out of both 18 and 9. So we want a number that 18 and 9 are both divisible by. Raise your hand nice and high. You can think of a number. The first thing that he said, very first one. 9. Yep. You guys agree that we can do 18 divided by 9? And we can do 9 divided by 9? Absolutely. So go ahead and cross off the 18. And what is 18 divided by 9? 2. So you're going to write a 2 in its place. Then I want you to go ahead and cross off the 9. And what's 9 divided by 9? 1. Very good. Now let's look at our other set of cross canceling. We have a 1 and a 5. Can you think of a number that we can factor out of both 1 and 5? No. When there's a 1, there's nothing to factor out. So let's multiply. And I'm going to have you guys say this answer all together. So you're doing the multiplication. You're multiplying your numerators. In your numerator, what is 2 times 5, class? 10. Very good. And we're going to do the denominator together as well. So in your denominator, what's 1 times 1, class? 1. Very good. And who can do step 3? Simplify if possible. What do I get when I simplify? 10. Very good. So your final answer here is 10. And that's all we have to do for 7-1.